that I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Everything's back and running. Good.
You are live.
Aloha, everybody, and welcome to Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio. And I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, with Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin, my co-host, and my producer is Thomas Becker, also known as the Mad Painter. And I recommend everybody, we're going to have a little panel here today with 5 people. So if you're not talking, put yourself on mute, please, so we can minimize the background noise. We have on our panel today Axel Verstraeten. I will have you pronounce your name, Simon, Esler, and Graham Sims. And we are going to be talking about disclosure, the awakening, spiritual growth. Boy, we've got all kinds of topics. I'm not sure where we're going to go. We'll go over the charts. But what I would like to ask our panel is, when you're done speaking, say that you're finished, so the next person can talk. And also, mention your name when you start speaking, because there's 5 of us tonight, so it gets a little bit confusing for our listeners. So, hi. So just bear with us. I'm doing a little intro, and then I'll have you come on one at a time. First, I'm going to see if my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin, if his connection is working. Sweetheart, are you there?
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me?
I'm not sure what's going on. Did you shut off some of your computers? I can hear you, but you're a little bit wonky. But that's kind of how it is. Okay, so what would you like to say about today's show? Did you read what I put up on? I put a bunch of stuff on AquarianRadio.com. I've got pictures. Coming up wrong. I have to go change them again while the show's going. Like I had the wrong names for everybody. I've got 5 people on the panel today, and then a mad pain. So anyway, go ahead, Sasha. What do you want to say?
Well, just we all remember Q from when he was tormenting Picard. So I'm interested in the new stuff about Q.
Okay, so let's start with the first one in our in my queue. Simon Esler. Hi, Simon. Sound check, and can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how the 3 of you are connected? And then we'll go down to talk to Axel and then Graham.
Sure,
so starting
it'll be
with
my
you, Simon.
pleasure.
Hi, aloha. Welcome
Aloha.
to our show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I am a full disclosure activist. I work as a metaphysical minister. I live in Toronto, Ontario, here in Canada. And I went through my own personal awakening here in Toronto, and that brought me to a place where I started working and studying as a healer, doing a number of different healing modalities, a lot of guided meditation, a lot of Qigong. I began to study under a Tibetan Buddhist monk. And I have spent the years since just deepening my spiritual studies and then also really diving into the full disclosure movement. So a big focus on releasing suppressed technologies, on the disclosure of the extraterrestrial presence, and on the disclosure of humanity's true potential. So I've poured a lot of focus into that, into supporting that movement. I launched the QAnon think tank on Facebook, and this was right around the time that QAnon started, and this is a very, very research-based project that focuses on filing and organizing all the information that arises from that particular focus of study, from what Q has dropped and the solid research that's there. So I've worked to, make that an available resource for the community and one that's very strong in its research. So I've been working to expand that, and then recently I joined up with Graham and Axel to launch the Great Awakening.ca. And for us, a big part of that and our hopes and our ambitions for that are rooted in exposing the Canadian deep state, exposing the Canadian narrative in terms of covert programs, suppressed technology, the extraterrestrial presence, all those similar themes. And we really feel like Canada has not been exposed in terms of its complicit programs and illegal activities that it has been up to. So we're really focused on that. And sort of amongst all that, my great passion and my interest is tying all of this together metaphysically and really offering people the metaphysical tools that need to come along with this very potent information. So right now I'm really, really focused on finding connections between the spiritual practices and the disclosure of suppressed information. And that's all I have to say right now.
Interesting. Okay. So I guess we'll go to, who's next? Axel. Axel, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your work and the Grand Awakening.
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity for coming on your show, first of all. Not every day that I get to join some Hawaiian folk and actually talk about what got me started. So thank you for having for me and the team being on. Really appreciate it. But
we're excited to have you.
Thank you. Yeah. My whole awakening started around 2017 when I saw how the media reacted to Trump getting elected. And I just saw, something's obviously going on there. And at the time I was going through kind of like my own awakening. And I've battled a lot of things in my life. I've battled all kinds of addiction and, lust for my own agenda, wanting to do things my way. Mm-hmm. And all it resulted in was very, very, negative experiences for myself. So I eventually started to get a little bit more into the spiritual side of things, which really helped me out. And, just the whole alien thing, I think, really kind of cleared a lot of things up for me from a lot of my early childhood previous indoctrinations. But nevertheless, I think there's still a lot of work to be done. I think, people are just, we're only starting to scratch the surface for what it means to bring this information out to the mainstream right now. And it really is a matter of, for me, it's a matter of looking inward, because when we're looking for answers on the outside, I feel like those answers will never come, because we need to look inside ourselves, because we have this genetic code that is connected directly to the divine. So obviously, aliens are here, and they're here for a reason, because we have something that they don't have. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of what motivates me.
What do we have that they don't have? What do we have that they don't have?
What do we have that they don't have? I would say that we
said we have something that they don't have.
Right. So we have the ability to feel emotion on a level that they don't have. We have the ability to transcend through the ranks of spirituality in a way that they don't have. And that is why they haven't invaded us, is because there's spiritual laws, and I would like to simplify those spiritual laws by calling them one word, God. God is the reason why that they cannot invade. Those are the spiritual laws of the universe. And that's, again, my opinion. But, yeah, so I'm just trying to find my place in the world in being able to connect those dots and seeing how they all kind of fit together. You know, it's nice to have Q and everything, but we need more than that. You know, people need more than just than one person kind of calling the shots, and I think that it comes from within. You know, everybody's got their own you know, things to go through, and I feel like those things need to be adhered to, because they're not necessarily bad. They're just what we need to go through in order to get to where we need to be.
Well, that's great. I agree. Okay, let's see. Our third person is Graham. Hi, Graham. Welcome to the panel.
Hi there. Thank you.
Hi. So tell us who you are and a little bit about what's going on with you.
Okay, yeah. So my name's Graham Sims, and I'm in Eastern Canada as well. But I was out in Hawaii in May for Cosmic Waves, and my first time there, it was so amazing. Loved that whole area. Just beautiful.
Which island did you come to?
We were down at Kona. Yeah, we were near Kona and like Captain Cook area there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so yeah, we get to swim with the spinner dolphins, and there was some great disclosure going on there. Laura Eisenhower, Corey Good, Elizabeth Wilcock, Joan Ocean. And I've been doing a bit of the circuit of disclosure conferences this year, so that's how I got hooked up with Axel and Simon as well at the Dimensions of Disclosure in Los Angeles. And yeah, I guess I've been involved in this for a good 20 years, going back to Dr. John Mack, the Harvard psychiatrist who worked with abductees in the 90s. And so I was able to do a work-study program there when I was like 20 or so. And after that, I started researching Sag Harbor UFO crash in eastern Canada, where I live, and published a book on that with author Chris Stiles. Chris Stiles did all the original research on that great case. We call it Canada's Roswell. And lots of exciting stuff happening coming out called Edge of Magonia. That's about that presence that's been in that area for a long time, and expanding on that a bit. But yeah, it's been great. Just recently joining with Axel and Simon and on the Great Awakening .ca. So we're getting sort of joining our forces and, focusing on, as Simon said, deep state activity in Canada and UFO disclosure in Canada. So that's been keeping us busy, and we're super excited about it. Yeah. What did you want to ask us besides our background, though? I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Well, I thought we'd go around and do like a round table and ask each other the same question, but I'll start with me, then Sash, you prepare for the next question. So you're all researching extraterrestrials and the extraterrestrial presence here on the planet. What is your perspective of what's going on? Are they hostile? Are they friendly? Are they a combination? I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm an experiencer. I've been having experiences since I was born. I've had contact with councils. I'm kind of like Elizabeth April. You know, she's like an ambassador level. That's kind of my experience. I go up there, I'm fully conscious, and I have this ambassador level. So to me, it's very complex. There's the good, the bad, the ugly, but there's as much good as there is bad up there, and everything in between. So individually, let's go back to the beginning of this. We'll talk to Simon. Who are the extraterrestrials? How do you see us getting from just the contact, the experiencer level to disclosure? So we'll start with you, Simon.
Yeah, absolutely. I, too, am an experiencer and a contactee, so I've had a number of experiences that I'd say they sort of range between the positive and the negative. So my understanding is also that it's really the kind of polarity that we see here on Earth just kind of extends into the cosmos, and that you really do have beings and races that are involved in, varying agendas and spiritual orientations. And so it's a very complicated subject in that regard. That being said, there's a lot of really good information to go about. And I'll say that my experiences, the majority have been positive. They have been based on supporting my spiritual evolution, and that seemed to be like a cornerstone of it. I'll say that my contact experiences became more dramatic once I became more aware of the exopolitical situation on Earth in tandem with having worked on myself spiritually. And I really noticed that improved the quality of the contact, the coherence of the contact, the kind of lucidity and information that could be exchanged. So my understanding is that we're here at a precipice where we're kind of facing a mirror, where we look at the corruption and the negative influences that humanity has cultivated. And we're kind of being faced with some of that coming back on us from the cosmos. But we also have a lot of beautiful, positive support that really is trying to create the most positive outcome here on Earth. And I think that the cornerstone of all of this is that when we work on ourselves spiritually, when we develop a more peaceful inner world, then I believe that the natural result of many, many human beings doing that is greater contact with our cosmic neighbors. And I feel that there are protocols that have to be honored for larger forms of contact to occur. And one of those protocols is a species or a civilization that is on the path to a collective state of peace. And so we have to be headed in that direction. And that does not require that everyone believes the same thing. I don't think that we have to all share beliefs to be looking in the same direction towards peace. So I believe that different belief systems can be held and maintained and reconciled, but I think there has to be a certain amount of harmony and unity in terms of how many people are really putting the work in to evolve themselves and to become more peaceful within themselves. So that's been my journey with it, and if it comes up naturally, I would love to, maybe share some of my experiences, but that's my overall gist of where we're at right now.
Excellent. So, Sasha, any questions or feedback for Simon?
Yeah, maybe you guys can clue me in a little bit. We've been interviewing people that talk about, first of all, how by Operation Paperclip, basically the United States and Canada too was taken over by the Nazis and their descendants, and that basically these are the people that run the ICC and the SSP, the secret space program, and they abduct people and put them in the military against their will and everything. And if this is true, we keep getting these reports, it's either true or it's certainly true for these people. I want to know what information you guys have on that.
Yeah. Did anyone else want to start, or do you guys want me to jump in? Graham or Axel, do you guys want to start with anything?
I mean,
yeah,
I have my idea of kind of what's going on with the ICC. This is Axel speaking. I'm just going to say really quick that a lot of the early secret space program stuff was rooted in Nazism and this idea of, eugenics and procuring a certain kind of human, a master race, if you will. And what I think a lot of people that work for the SSP eventually realize is that they don't want to work for a service-to-self being a reptilian who is looking to channel to their master, which is ultimately the forces of service to self, which is Satan or Lucifer. That's the way that you can break it down in the human plane. That's how we understand it as humans is, service to self is materialism. It's what can I take? What can I get? But these are things that we do not take to the grave. So I see this as something that is more metaphysical. And even though it is very physical and where all our trillions of tax dollars are going, and the crux of all these problems that we have on this planet, I do think that there is a level of spiritual understanding that we as a species need to overcome in order to get to the root cause of the problem that was the division within the SSP. Anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah, actually, I'll jump in.
Yeah, how about Graham?
Graham, do you have anything you want to say?
No, go ahead, Simon.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I just
your name to start, because we don't know your voices. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Simon. Yeah, I wanted to respond to that actually because I really feel like the means by which the Nazis gained a tactical advantage that allowed this kind of takeover, well, it was metaphysical in a lot of ways because these early Nazi programs and these secret societies that had developed, they had an understanding of how to combine the technological with the esoteric and the metaphysical. They were aware of that connection early on. This is how they made some of the early forms of contact, right? We know that Maria Orsic, she was channeling information on how to construct spacecraft. So their ability to combine the metaphysical and the physical and to really understand the relationship between those things, well, that was a really big tactical advantage, and it allowed them to leap forward in a whole number of ways. And then after that, what you have is you have the U.S. military-industrial complex that isn't compromised, the aspects of it that are not taken over. They're scrambling to catch up technologically because they didn't have that insight very early on. So I think when you bring it back to today, what we have is, we have to catch up to that understanding of how the metaphysical and the technological are interrelated and how our state of being spiritually, it dictates our application of technology. Now, they understood this, but from that negative service to self path. And so because they had that, they were able to develop advanced technology along that path of serving themselves. And, they were very devoted to that path spiritually. So I think we're at a point where we're trying to get to that balance where we as a population need to work to combine those two things. And that happens on an individual and a collective level. And that's what I wanted to say.
Oh, I really relate to what you're saying. Thank you. Right.
Say your name, Sasha. When you speak up, say who you are. We have 5 people.
I'm Sasha.
And so you're relating. What are you relating to? What do you agree with?
I think we've got to embrace it all instead of being in a dualistic bind. It's so obvious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Let's let Graham get a word in here, and I just want to say my name, Axel, obviously. My dad's name is Sasha, so
I highly relate to that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Are you Russian?
Actually, his name is Alejandro, but yeah, in Russian, his mother was Russian, and she nicknamed him Sasha. A lot of Alexanders are actually nicknamed Sasha.
That's very true. You got it. Yes. Okay. So, Graham, speak up, please. Tell us about yourself and what you think on this. So we're going back to the Royal Society in Maria Orsic. So we're starting at the beginning. How we got into this conundrum with the Nazis, secret base program. I guess there's a little history we need to fill in here. But go ahead. Start wherever you want to start, and we'll cover as much as we can in 2 hours, and then we'll do some more. Go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, this is Graham. I don't really have too much to add to that. It's not my area of specialty, really, but it does seem, obviously, that the Germans were the ones who penetrated deep space first, and it seems like there were aspects of the U.S. military in terms of Navy and Air Force that were not completely with them. So I think there was many parallel secret space programs going on at the same time. I can't really speak to the alliances or the differences, although I can say, it sounds like a lot has been changing in the recent past, and it sounds like, the draconian reptilian influence has been pushed back, and I hope that's true. It seems like maybe that's what's going on, and that's rippling down into into politics, terrestrial politics. So whatever's going to happen, it's going to be exciting. Certainly with the new Space Force, it seems like that could be a vehicle for disclosure, whether that's partial disclosure or full disclosure. Michael Sala's been talking about that quite a bit. So certainly, I think a lot has been going on recently, and a lot's going to be coming down the tube for us. That's all I have for that, really.
Okay, we'll just kind of go free flow. Go ahead, Sash.
Yeah. Well, it's so obvious in every way that the disclosure of the technologies and what the government really would make such a difference here in Hawaii. The military has these great big underground bases in the Hawaiian island known as the Mauna Kea. And the Hawaiians didn't want them to build this big telescope that's supposed to replace the Hubble in that place. And if we had disclosure, we could say, hey, we've got telescopy from Iapetus in Jupiter and all over the place. Honor the Hawaiians. They want this thing to be sacred. They want to feel spiritual with their mountain. My gosh, this is a wonderful chance to bless the Hawaiians. And so many of our Earth competitions and disputes will be settled if we could just realize the reality of full disclosure of the technologies that the ETs could share with it. The military's probably already grabbed.
Okay, who wants to go next?
Anybody?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Whoever's talking.
This is Simon talking. So, I've spent a lot of time connecting with Corey Good around this material, and we spoke once about the perspective of the military in terms of the public and where the public was at in relation to the technology. And there's really a feeling from a lot of military leadership in these secret space programs that we, sort of the civilian population, lack the maturity and the discipline necessary to even manage this technology. And so, to a certain extent, some of the secrecy is due to that belief that if this technology is not managed by the discipline and maturity of a military infrastructure, then it will be misused. Now, there's obviously some irony there, because we could all make the argument that they have misused this technology greatly.
Right.
But there is some, there is some truth that we need to progress in our maturity and our discipline. That being said, if we look at the way some of the more positive leadership in the secret space programs was obviously manipulated, right? So, for example, if we look at the testimony of Corey Goode, and he talks about the person they call Sigmund, who was a leader in the U.S. Air Force, and he was not privy to the U.S. Navy's secret space program and to a number of secret space programs way above what he understood to be going on. So the truth is that, their lack of maturity kind of had them, get duped, because while they thought they were creating the most mature, disciplined application of this technology, they were actually being manipulated by, ETs and other groups with agendas. So I think there's an all-around growth that needs to happen, and obviously full disclosure and the kind of transparency and communication that will bring is really, really important. Yeah.
I'd like to say something. This is Axel speaking. Okay, sorry,
Go ahead,
what?
Axel. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just thinking a lot about kind of the warring factions between secret space programs too, and the alliances between them. And I mean, I can't really speak too much as to the specificities of that, but what I can see is that there is a clear separation between the old guard and what is this new push for a more full disclosure. We know that Hillary Clinton and John Podesta were very much engaged in wanting to release alien information, which most people would think, hey, that's great. But it's also a matter of inserting and limiting the bigger picture. As humans, we always want to know more. We always want to delve into the unknown, because you're either scared of the great unknown or you want to know more about it, right? And I feel like a lot of us people here, the average person is just like, hey, you know what? Aliens are real, great. I still got to pay the bills. So how do you get in that living room between the average person that isn't even looking for, doesn't even know what disclosure is, and bring it to them from a good place? And I think the best way to do that is to expose darkness. Say, this is what can happen when you do it the wrong way, hence how it's been done. In the 50s and the 60s, they honestly thought that by now we'd have flying cars, but we're discussing about how pets with white fur are racist, and we can't even decide what gender we are. So all these things I feel like are engineered to dumb us down. And what we need to do is just kind of, instead of being behind the 8 ball, jump in front of the 8 ball and really see things for what they are, as spiritual beings having a human experience and not the other way around. Because a lot of the problems that we have on Earth are rooted in the fact that we're stuck on Earth. If we could leave Earth, then our problems would be so much easier. Because, I mean, everyone says this. This is known common knowledge that the Earth will eventually one day be gone. The sun will be gone. We need to get the hell out of here if we're going to carry on our divine legacy. So, I mean, I think it is important that the deep state recognize that the Pentagon has been giving the Navy way more money than the Air Force, and that their weapons, while they might have a very sophisticated draconian laser weapons that the Navy has actually, the Alliance has developed antimatter and Tesla shield weapons that can completely refute any kind of ballistic missile. And this is very good, because it's not just about how much damage can you inflict. This is about how much damage can you protect. And that is a completely different anatomy of warfare that I don't even think humans are privy to at all, in any sense of the word. So I'm very thankful for the fact that there is a war for disclosure, because if there wasn't, we'd be screwed. And that's all I have to say.
No, I just wanted to add my 2 cents. This is Janet. I'm the only woman on this whole thing. I think real disclosure started back in with the day the Earth stood still and followed through with Roddenberry, and these were all early. They were trying to tell us through science fiction what was really going on. We had Isaac Asimov, J. Allen Hynek, and who was the other one? Asimov and Heinlein. And Heinlein was in the Navy, so he had some information. So they were trying to get this out and prepare society, for the last 70 years. And there is a model for us to do this peacefully. It doesn't all have to be war-based. There is a model. Now, lately we have our reality has been taken over by all the subsequent stories about the secret space program, and there's many variations on that theme as there are people coming forth and there's infighting. This, I've got the truth. You're lying. You're telling the truth. And I'm in the middle and I hear all this stuff and it's like I have no idea what is the truth. I think each person has their own variation and their own personal truth. And so, anyway, I want to pass the talking stick back to you guys. But I'm more hopeful and optimistic because I am, of course, exposed to the peaceful side of the continuum. And my exposure with extraterrestrials is predominantly we're getting along. We don't have all this violence. We don't have all these wars. And they've been showing me models of how to do governance systems that are fair and equitable so people get their needs met. So I'm, people don't like it because they go, oh, Janet, you're so, goody two-shoes. But my reality is my experiences are 99.9% positive, and I'm being shown an alternative to all this. So I'm just an old hippie. What can I say? Anyway, back to whoever wants to take the talking.
No, yeah,
I
would say that this is Sasha. The elephant in the room is that disclosure will involve chains of people who murder and kidnap and do terrible things and on a wide scale and are financed by some of the elite of the world. And even if you have a no retribution, truth and reconciliation, these people's heinous deeds will haunt them during their existence, and that's the elephant in the room. They're afraid of disclosure because they're murderers and crooks.
And you know what? Before we change the question to another one, I'm going to say we don't need to tell everyone who our names are because I'm actually going to take this call and I'm going to superimpose our faces whenever we're speaking, and I can send that back to you. And I will make it very video friendly, and everyone will have their picture on when we're speaking. So I just wanted to say, regarding what you were just talking about, is that yes, we do need to go through a spiritual awakening before we get these technologies, because with great power comes great responsibility. And what we cannot have is this power coming out to the mainstream and being given to the public, because what's going to happen? Well, now you're going to have the ability to abduct a small village of people with no tire tracks, no footprints. So, yeah, we have a problem with human trafficking on this planet. We have a problem with pedophilia. We have a problem with cannibalism and child sacrifice and satanic ritual abuse. We know that the upper echelons of these people who were part of the old guard in the high ranks were satanic in nature, and they want to divide us into a million pieces, divided by race, color, religion, political affiliation. And what we need to do is unite, period. Because otherwise, if we don't unite, the government is going to let us have anti-gravity, but we're going to be on autopilot. We're not going to be able to leave the planet, and that's what we need to do. We need to be able to leave the planet and colonize other star systems and spread our message of peace and deliverance. And that's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, next. Who wants to comment on that?
Yeah, it's Simon here.
I
think,
there's
an interesting perspective in terms of a war. This is actually right where I've been at in my studies and some of the content I'm creating right now, that there's a divide, I think, in the truth-seeking community between those that feel this is a war and who are engaged in more of a war-fighting mentality, and those who feel that that's a distorted perception that leads to more violence and more destruction. And, I think there's something to both those perspectives, and that we do need to reconcile, that tension between those two different perspectives that are being held by groups that really have the same end goal. And, and if we look at what war really is, it's defined. There's a 1997 war fighting document that was released by the Department of the Navy. So it was a Marine Corps document that is just basically outlining their perspectives on warfare. And one of the ways they define it is that it's a struggle between two irreconcilable wills, each trying to impose itself on the other. And so I think that is an important way to understand this situation, because from that collective perspective, we do have two irreconcilable wills, right? You have the deep state, you have this negative faction, whether it's an ET or it's a human. We have these groups that are much more rooted in this negative orientation spiritually, and they have refined their will for millennia to prepare for this. And we're in a position where we need to strengthen our will. So whether it's a perspective of war or whether it's a more peaceful way of looking at that, we do need to understand that there's a clash of wills occurring on this planet, and that what we are doing is trying to refine the power and the effectiveness of our collective will to take this planet back. So I think acknowledging that deep conflict is very important, that the conflict is there, but the conflict from a spiritual perspective, that's what's generating wisdom for the human collective, this intense conflict between these two wills. So, I think finding ways to perceive that together, finding ways to acknowledge this deep conflict is very important. And, I hope that we can find language to communicate that is available for everyone, because I know that the term war can be a trigger for many, many people. And that's all I have to say right there.
And I realize our listeners may not know what we're talking about, so maybe somebody wants to fill in the blank with their perspective of what is going on in the universe. Some people go, war? What war? I really have not been exposed personally to any warring factions. I have friends like Penny Bradley and Andrew Mishago and who else? There's dozens of them I talked to and I've interviewed, and they have a whole other reality about going off the planet and fighting in space, and some are peaceful missions. But and then there's Corey Goodman. I really haven't tracked 100% everything that Corey's been saying. There's Emery Smith, and there's all these people that have their theories about what's going on outside of planet Earth. So does somebody want to kind of fill in the gaps for our listeners so they can catch up on the different theories? So can someone summarize what is Corey Good saying right now? I know he's changed. I mean, he's got a basic story, but it keeps updating. Can someone summarize Corey Good's perspective? Who's good at doing that?
Simon, I know you're going to do a very good job of breaking down Corey Good, but before you do, I just want to say that one thing that Corey has really said that spoke close to my heart was that the reason why we don't remember who we are when we're born is because we're all God. And if you remembered you were God, you wouldn't have any of these traumas that you brought on from the generations. So I think a lot of our problems come from karma that is rooted within generational malpractice. All these evil entities that were, and maybe you can just finish what I started, because I know I just opened up a can of worms talking about this light versus dark thing, but maybe you can, elaborate on that a little bit for us.
Yeah, okay. So I think to give a really quick summary of what Corey Good offers, this is a testimony of someone who was abducted at a very early age. I believe he was around 6 years old, and he was forced into military programs that were focused on enhancing certain aspects of his skill sets. they wanted to enhance him for programs that they already had in development. So for Corey, he was enhanced as an intuitive empath, and then that was used in a variety of ways in a number of programs, but one of the main ways it was used was that he was a tool for them to interface with different extraterrestrials. The fundamental notion there was that if there was an intuitive, more psychic, empathetic way to communicate with these beings, it would overcome language barriers, and it would also allow them to interrogate and sense any deception in certain situations they were in. So essentially, Corey was forced into this. He was treated as a slave from childhood onwards, and then when he was about 17, he was more formally inducted into a secret space program where he, had to sign some papers and take some injections at a base on the moon, and then suddenly he was with this allegedly Navy secret space program. And Corey went through what was called a 20 and back, which essentially had him serving 20 years in space. And then, this is the most difficult part of his testimony for many people. He was age regressed and sent back in time to the moment of him being drafted into the program. Now, interestingly, there have been some recent disclosures on the very age regression technology he was put through, and some of those things have been confirmed. But the point being that Corey was put through this, and he was blank slated when he came back, meaning that they hid the memories of his experiences in his own mind. And he basically was able to recover those memories and began to disclose his experiences around, I think it was 2014, 2015, he really started to come out more publicly. Now, in terms of a war or the idea of a war, well, his experience was that there was a very negative extraterrestrial presence manipulating a lot of these programs, working with humans that were aligned with that negative spiritual orientation, and that there was a newly formed alliance of human beings that were seeking to end this oppressive agenda and to disclose some of these technologies. So the perspective coming from Corey Goode and from David Wilcock, who, they have worked very closely together, is that, there is a desire to maintain humanity's current state of oppression. There's a desire to minimize how many human beings ascend and move forward spiritually. So some of it is just in trying to reduce the numbers. But I think the essence of it is that Corey experienced what has happened to human karma as it has extended secretly into space. And I think that's what we're looking at, is that, everything Corey is coming forward with, you don't have to believe it, as a fact. It's a very difficult testimony to approach in terms of belief. But the themes that he brings forward are still relevant for all of us, that we have a moment of awakening unfolding across this planet. We have contact happening all over the planet. We have suppressed technology. And these are all very important themes. So even if someone dismisses the testimony of Corey Goode entirely, we still have to reconcile the suppressed technology, the extraterrestrials, and the true human potential that has been, hidden from us. So I think what Axel is bringing forward is very important. That, the core of this, if we don't get too caught up in the incredible nature of the information about extraterrestrials and technology, we do come back to a fairly simple act of devoting ourselves to a more spiritual path and to devoting ourselves to working together more effectively. And to me, that's what ends up coming out of all that anyways in the end. So I hope that helps. Hope that summary helps.
Yes. And I have a question, and then I think we should go back to the roundtable. But and I have been exposed personally to a lot of this advanced technology. I've been inside the craft. I've been on other planets. As an experiencer, first of all, of the three, are you all three of you experiencers? And you want to give us a little bit of a hint about your experiences And have you personally seen this technology? I have a friend, let me just say one thing and I'll pass that around. What's his name? Dan Cooper. He's been on board. He's been in the 20 Back program. And he came back with enough awareness, and he's a physicist, that he is reinventing the M drive, the technology, the warp technology. And he's going to do everything he can in his lifetime to get it out. Because if you just replace all the engines with this M drive, you'll get off fossil fuels and you can retrofit cars, planes, trains, boats, everything, and save the planet. We need something like that. So, who was the last person to talk? Let's go to the next person and address that experiencer question. Who wants to be next?
Hi, it's Graham. Yeah.
Graham.
Hi there. So, yeah, enjoyed that conversation so far. Just to pick up where we left off before, my understanding, it sort of grew initially. I was always very, saw the ET presence as a benevolent and beneficial thing. And, of course, coming to the understanding of some of the negative ET presences, it was disturbing, but it seems like that's pretty low, like down 5% or so of all the ETs here. So, at the same time, it also, my understanding grew to the point of, instead of seeing like the ETs as evil, I was really seeing the evil in humanity as being more of the issue, and realizing, and it was a relief to see that most of the ETs were humanoid and basically benevolent. And so instead of sort of again like placing the blame elsewhere, I think it's important to look at ourselves and our spiritual growth, and you guys touched on that, our personal growth, our human potential, as well as our sovereignty, and I think we can be open to the ET presence, and also realize that there's a necessity for our human sovereignty as well, for us to maybe it's time that we take over the reins, because they obviously have been involved heavily. So in terms of my own experiences, it's so easy to forget these things because that's what they're like. They're so slippery. But, sometimes we do remember, and, in contact, ET contact and technology, those 2 points were brought up before, and certainly, consciousness is the bridge between the two of them. And, the few experiences that I do remember were definitely all about consciousness. It was definitely a consciousness-based, technology and experience. So there's little wake-up calls that we get, and most people who are on this path, probably had a few nudges when they were young with a sighting or, an experience or a dream or whatever.
That's very good. That was really good.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, I was going to say we've been touching base with the experiencers related to the Shag Harbor experience, and for some reason I found very few abductees in Nova Scotia, but the ones that we did find all lived in the same area on an island on the southwest shore there, and and they had implants, and we have the medical documents of the implants.
Tell us about that. What happened with the Shag Harbor? I'm not familiar with that one. You would tell us a little bit about what that one was?
Yeah, so in terms of Shag, it's sort of Canada's Roswell. It's a well-documented, officially documented case from 1967, and there was ET contact, at least with some of the military divers. And, I've also touched base with some researchers in the UK and some experiencers there who seem to have been in contact with the same beings and some humanoids, not just the ghosts, some humanoids, which is always interesting, and they have beards too, so they're like real humans. Yeah. And, and they're wearing smock and they have biblical kind of names. So, there's definitely something going on down there, and the U.S. military sort of took over the NORAD bases down there. And, I think those are linked historically, those radar bases are linked to sightings at least. And we have a lot of examples of that. But it's still going on, and it went on in the folklore of that area of Nova Scotia, and it's going on now. And so it's a great case. It's really an ongoing and active case.
Can I say something?
Please.
Yes.
I just want to say that the reason why I think we haven't had full disclosure yet is because we're still dealing with all the traumas from millenniums of service to self, and we need to expose the darkest parts of humanity and how we treat the weakest members before we can actually go about releasing this technology to the general public, because it really comes down
hold that
to...
thought. We're at the top of the hour. Hold on, we're on a commercial break. We'll be back in 5 minutes. So remember where you are. We'll come back and see you in 5 minutes. Sorry about that. Snuck up on me.
Okay.
Back in 5.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yes. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a simple majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more... Be quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! It's just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, and stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
Enjoy your extra big-ass fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another extra big-ass fries?
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please come back when you can afford to make a purchase.
No.
I'm sorry you're having
trouble.
trouble.
Come on. My kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener-supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we do in life, it goes in eternity.
Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we are listener-sponsored and commercial-free. But there still are bills to pay. In order to raise some needed funds to cover the cost, our station is offering a silver special. In the continental United States for a $60 donation, or in Alaska, Hawaii, or Canada for a $70 donation, we will send you an uncirculated 2018 1-ounce pure silver eagle. The $70 donation, the extra 10 is to cover shipping, by the way, outside of the continental United States. When making the donation, you must put Silver Eagle promo in the notes on the donation. And thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at revolution.radio and freedomslips.com. Without you, there is no us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha and welcome back to Sacred Matrix, and I'm your host, Janet Lesson. I'm getting feedback, and my co-host is Dr. Sasha. Alex Lesson, our producer is Thomas Becker, also known as Mad Painter. We're here with Axel Verstraeten, Simon Esler, and Graham Sims, and we're doing a roundtable and all kinds of things. And before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to go over and make a donation. And we have a special. Let me read it to you. For a limited time offer for $10 donation to the station, a Mad Painter will send you a PDF of his new book, Ether. It's a short story that explores the world of consciousness, friendship, and love in an ever-changing reality. What could the fate of mankind be if left alone? As it has always been, the world will change in ways we don't see coming, let alone stop some of the changes. When we look at the future, we need to keep an eye on the things that may come. So just put book in the comments and your email address, and you can get the book for $10 donation. If you want to donate less, just go over to revolution.radio and make your donation, and we really appreciate your donations. It helps us stay on the air. Okay, so I think we're all back, and I wanted to I don't remember what we were saying before we took our break and who was talking, but I want to invite everybody to, the hour goes fast. If you have a question or something, like a burning share, please do speak up, and let's get in as much as we can. So, Sasha, you back. Say hi.
Hi. Let's just proceed. We were right in the middle of, somebody was in the middle of their sentence when we got cut off. Who was that?
Okay, whoever it was, come back and finish your thought. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it was me. It was Axel speaking, and I was just making reference to some of the things that are holding us back from having this technology. And I think it just comes back to how we treat the weakest members of society. And I think that before we can have this great technology released, we need to understand how it can be used for the negative and how it was used for so long. The pyramids of Giza are a great example of how this technology has actually been procured for millennia. It's actually a big secret, but it's not. It's hidden in plain sight. And whether you've been on these craft or not, I think the main thesis is the same. You have this power. You've been blessed with this opportunity to make a difference. And how did you react? How did you use it? And that is what we're seeing unfold right now, is we're seeing the systematic takedown and unraveling of all these powers that use them for very nefarious activities to get people prepped for the bigger picture that's eventually going to be disclosed. So, I'm going to end that and end it with, we need to adhere to things like the Me Too movement, to things like human trafficking, and to really not make those mistakes again, because this is all going to be not just put under the microscope, but it's going to go to the next exponent if we can't get a grasp on how to specifically use this technology for good.
Excellent. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the ancient... See, my husband and I, Sasha and I, we've written 5 books on the Anunnaki, so we're looking at the history of the Earth from, that big chunk of time as Anunnaki influence. And so we have a whole theory and research and information that we put forth. I don't know if we want to go in that direction, but you did evoke the pyramids and the past technologies and the abuse of technology. So maybe that's what we want to do around on that. So let's just go around. And if you have something else you want to talk about, you don't have to follow what I'm asking. But who wants to take the talking stick next and add your 2 cents?
Yeah, well, it's Simon here. I can jump in on that, and I think it's connected. We were moving around, I think, in terms of being experiencers as well, and I think that does relate to some of that history, some of the history of extraterrestrial influence and interference in our planet. So, I'll say that me personally, one of the more profound contact experiences I had was I had some beings enter my room when I was about to fall asleep, and I was pulled from my body, and I was able to observe my body during this experience. And what they essentially did was they showed me how my body would react if I had a physical, on-craft encounter at this time. And they showed the response that my body would have. And it was one of stress. So I was watching my breathing increase and my heart rate increase and my adrenaline pump. And I was just outside my body watching those mechanics play out. And it just had to do with some old, deep programming that is prevalent in a lot of people that, frankly, I wouldn't have said that is something that I have, because I'm immersed in this material, because I had contact experiences before that. But they were showing me a program that exists in a huge portion of the population that is a big barrier to mass contact, right? That it literally wouldn't be safe. Now, when we look back on the presence of, like the Anunnaki and the ancient extraterrestrials, when there was more open contact, you had huge advantages there. Now, I think it was presented often in a way where sometimes beings presented themselves as gods or as more advanced beings, and there's some manipulation there. But the point being that there was an era of human history where open physical contact that was not secretive was available. And we need to look at why that's not available in the ways that it was in that past, right? What shifted as we grew as a population, as we developed as a humanity? Why didn't we develop to become more and more available for those types of contact? And, that gets back to this battle of wills, that there was a desire to manipulate humanity away from higher states of consciousness, more towards fear, more towards limited states of being. And it has left us at a point where, if we don't change our state of being, we can really only expect so much help from races that really do want to help us. I agree, there's this overwhelming majority of extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional, extra-temporal races that are at the ready to support us. And it's really just a matter of how much of that support we can allow. And that means, acknowledging what we have within us as individuals that is an obstacle to those kinds of experiences. So for me personally, having been shown a program playing out in my body that I wasn't aware of, that is a literal obstacle to more contact, to me that was representative of something that's present in the collective to a great extent. And I wonder about the Anunnaki context and all that history and, what obstacle was not there during those times to allow such open and free exchanges of information.
Sash, do you want to cover that?
Okay, yeah.
Respond to that?
After what the Sumerian tablets said in Akkadian, basically is after Enki, Nimma, and Ningishita created the slaves. They were supposed to be clones, and they made them able to breed and so forth. But basically, the boss, Enki, Yahweh, said, "Let them just breed. I don't want these people educated. There's going to be, after a while, there was hundreds of thousands of them. There's only 900 of us." So Enki started what was called the society, the Snake Society, where he had a later son, Adapa, the second Adam, and he taught them all kinds of stuff and all the knowledge that they would need and so forth. And this kid was a genius. He started running all the other slaves. Adapa, the king of Nibiru, Anu said, "Send him here. I want to see him." So, but he got a note from Enki saying, "Please, Dad, this is my son. And besides that, I need him to run things for me. So don't keep him here in Nibiru. Send him back." And so, we were supposed to be a slave race. That's what it's about. And then later on, Prince Marduk, after the nuking of Sodom and Gomorrah and the Sinai Peninsula, he's known as Satan, and of course, Enki is known as Lucifer. When he took over, he did exactly what you said. He pitted us against each other. But he had started out, he married Sarpanit. He was going to have a Anunnaki and Earthlings mixing together and so forth. He wanted to raise an army to go back to Nibiru ultimately. That's where the Tower of Babel was with. It was basically a launch tower because he was supposed to be, in his mind and by treaty, the next king of Nibiru, but Anu wouldn't let him have it. He had deposed him. There's a little summary anyhow.
Very interesting.
So,
I'll agree with that.
Go ahead. Yeah, Whitley Strieber talked about he had to train himself to not be afraid. So you're saying that when you encountered them, they showed you how you would react, that you would be in your basic fight or flight, base shock response. And some people literally in the military have dropped over dead when they run up against an extraterrestrial. They're not used to seeing them. So that it has been a problem. But somehow I've learned how to do it. I'm not sure, but it did take, getting used to seeing them. I think individually we can get used to them, and collectively once again. But it's probably just because of, we're not supposed to be. It's like a big should. We're not supposed to be involved with extraterrestrials because the Bible says so. Our religious and cultural conditioning has told us that if we're experiencing these things, we're crazy. And so if we see it, we must be crazy. But I think that with this new generation of experiencers that are coming forth in mass, that, we might be a little bit more relaxed about it. I now have them. They can come to the side of my bed and I can talk to them, and I don't freak out. But when I was young, I used to freak out and I'd run, and so I gradually got used to it. What about you guys? Anybody getting used to interacting with ETs?
I just want to say that this is Axel speaking. I haven't had a lot of alien contact. I've had more divine contact than anything else. But I just want to say that I think from all the research that I've done is that Anunnaki have been largely service to self, and very much so trying to use the human race as one of their genetic experiments to procure their enslavement of us. And so I don't see anything positive from the Anunnaki. I think they are completely deserve a failing grade in the ranks of spirituality, and that we have the potential to completely surpass them when it comes to our quantum leap of consciousness that we acquire when we die. Because, quite frankly, any race that tries to enslave another race is doing that because they have tinkered with their genetic manipulation so much that they have defaced the one infinite creator in trying to become the one infinite creator. And that just will never fly. That's a recipe for disaster. And it's what so many elites that have conquered their own species do, is they tinker with the DNA and they create a monster. So that's why they're here. That's why they're invested in us, because we are created in the image of the divine. We have a higher connection to true source, to God, to whatever you want to call it. And they want that. They want to create a hybrid. They want to tap into that. And they don't want us to unlock our full potential. And like I said, I think the Anunnaki are the dirt under my feet, and they don't deserve any more attention than they've already got, period.
Okay. I have a different perspective. But anyway, let's go around. Who's next? What do you think of the Anunnaki? In fact, the whole hybrid program, we have other species that are doing the hybridization. We have the Greys and all, and even the military. So let's talk about that. Next person.
Graham, did you have any experiences that you wanted to share?
Or what are your thoughts about the hybridization and what was just said?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of that going on since the 90s. Certainly at the Program for Extraordinary Experience Research with Dr. Mack, a lot of the people I was working with were involved in hybrid programs. And, children these days, for the past 20 years, I think we see that there's a difference in a lot of children. And, that seems positive to me. I certainly appreciate our sovereignty, and, but I think this is also about reconnecting, our connection to source and becoming more fully divine beings. There's a lot of different agendas at play out there, but I do trust overall that it's moving in the right direction. In terms of, our abilities have a potential to be unlocked and to become our ascended, more full selves. So, I think I remember speaking to one experiencer in Cambridge there, and they talked about the ETs would do this test with them, and it was basically whether they would push a button to kill a giant ant. And, they were seeing how much killer we had in us, and I think that is a barrier to contact. And, if we're able to calm our minds and to calm our nature, and transcend that, I think, we're going to be able to be open. I mean, our minds are so chaotic that it's difficult for the ETs to communicate with us. So, I mean, there's a biological level to that, but there's also a spiritual and a mental level. And I think that's what we're working with. I think these are the barriers to contact. I think the hybrid program is part of the bridge to that barrier. At the same time, we're not, I don't know about the Sitchin and Anunnaki situation. It's not my area. And it seems like it's changing. There's lots of different information coming out. There's different translations. Whether we were designed for that or not, or whether that was certain species, other species, I don't know. But I think that's the past, and I think that's not the direction we're going in now. In any case, thank you.
Yeah. So Simon here, I wanted to respond to a lot of that, and to the notion, the hybridization program, and even just the Anunnaki and the way we can perceive a lot of these different races. I think it's really, really important to remember that humanity is a race, right? If we look at the cosmic context here, there's a race called humans that live on Earth who have a reputation and a presence in the cosmos at this point. Now, if we were going to have someone judge what kind of species humans are, I'm pretty sure our karma in the cosmos would make us seem like a kind of a violent, crazy species. If we go by what's being said in the secret space program, that we've been abusive to many different extraterrestrial races, that we've helped support human trafficking throughout the galaxy, that we've developed incredibly violent weapons and then traded them out into the galaxy to support other wars, I mean, I really don't think we would have a reputation as a positively oriented species. However, we know that the truth is that it's a real mixed bag. You come to Earth and you have a variety of different people with different agendas who all contribute to this very complex picture. Now, when we're using terms like Anunnaki, well, if we're talking about a whole race, well, okay, sure, maybe there was some negatively oriented, some positively oriented. I doubt that it's a fully polarized race, because from my understanding, it's always a mixed bag. Rarely does one species completely choose the same spiritual path. Maybe it's a percentage. But my point is that if we took the human reputation in the solar system, in the galaxy right now, we would probably come across as a bit tyrannical in the things that we've been supporting. And there's some responsibility we need to take for that. Now, in terms of the hybridization program, my understanding is that a lot of that has been very peaceful. I know a lot of the people who have been in the depths of that program. I've seen some interesting testimony about people meeting the children, the hybrid children who are some of their offspring, and that it was very positive, and that it was communicated that these children will be an important part of the process in integrating us into the cosmos. And that's really important. So it's like, we have a lot of agendas at play once we start to move into this material. And I think we need to take care to really deal with each encounter through its own merit. And, when I was shown what I was shown in terms of the program, the fight or flight program that was playing out within me, it didn't seem like a very big obstacle, quite honestly. It seemed like something that, that was very easy to work on. And, when Graham, I know that you're saying that there's this spiritual component to creating more of an opportunity for contact. And absolutely, I think we are seen as very chaotic inwardly, and that when contact does occur, my experience, a foundational aspect of that has been my ability to cultivate internal silence. And to be silent within, like that seems to be a very peaceful opportunity for them to make contact. And so that, to me, I think is a literal, very simple, direct practice that more people could be doing to present a more diplomatic space for these individual forms of contact. I think literally just being able to be totally quiet within yourself, I think that creates an opportunity for diplomacy that's really important. And I think that we're going to learn how important that is as we move forward, as contact increases, and as these hybrid programs become more prevalent, since they seem to be a bridge for where disclosure and where mass contact is heading. And I'll leave it at that for now.
That's great. Who else wants to chime in on that? Anybody else? Anything else to say? Sasha?
Yeah, in a way, it's interesting. I could suggest that things are just as they should be right now, and that the challenges that we're becoming aware of is just part of the process, and the reflection on our violence and the ability to project our thoughts about it are absolutely wonderful. And it may not be the results that count, but rather how we walk the path. And so that's my feedback.
Would you like to put the question out for everybody to answer, or does somebody else?
What do you think of that?
What do you
think of that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. Yes, absolutely. We need detachment from outcomes. We totally need to be detached from outcomes. I think that's really important. This is a process-oriented event, and I think that's a much safer, more psychologically sound perspective, and it's much more liable to create community and unity and, the kind of cooperation that we need.
Thank you. I also want to say that I forgot to say that, Michael Lee Hill, who said he's in touch with the modern embodiment of Marduk, said Marduk is, or Satan has said he is really sorry. He had to stimulate us to reach a singularity of technology that can lift us past our silly warfare and greed, and allocate resources in an intelligent way, and that all the pain that we've suffered, it was necessary, and he intends to make amends. That's really nice. I hope it's true.
Well, I just wanted to interject what my understanding of the hybrid program, there's the Anunnaki hybrid program, is that we wouldn't exist if it didn't happen, first of all, at least not in this form. And that if it didn't happen, both planets wouldn't be where we are today. So it's all perfect in some divine plan. Everybody has their story as to why they did it. Ultimately, each person thinks that they were right or they were good. The villain doesn't always think they're the villain. They just think they're doing what's, best for everybody. So it's a very complex story, and we weren't there. So it's really easy to judge people that had to go through things, but it was a survival story. And at the end, when they came down after the flood, and the Galzu came and revealed to Enki Nema and Enlil and everybody else that had gathered on the top of Mount Ararat after the flood, it was revealed that the creator of all intervened and allowed this creature, human being, human, they were man, we are human, to be created and to exist and to survive the flood. So they just thought, they threw their hands up in the air and they said, well, it must be the will of God's source, universal consciousness, the creator of all. And so that's why both species are still around. So now we have the same situation with the Greys. Who are the Greys? Apparently they're assisting for their own survival, but also, humanity. We're at the verge of wiping ourselves out. And I also wanted to add, I don't really want to destroy this planet and go off planet. I think I'm more in line with the Star Trek future, where the planet survives, it evolves to the next highest level. We can find these programs to recover the lands and seas and oceans and the green technologies. And I think we're, I keep holding that vision. So, okay, we have about a half an hour left, a little bit less than that. Who wants to ask a question to go around the table? Anybody have a good question or a good thought?
I have a good question. For sure. How do we think that we're going to get off this planet the fastest and best way possible? Because it's for sure that if we want to procure our race, then we must get off this planet, because our star is going to die and our planet is going to die. So how do we do that? What's the best way?
Okay. Who wants to take that one? Any
takers? Yeah, I'll do it.
Go
I'll
ahead.
jump in for sure. I think they're actually interrelated. I think it seems like what you guys are both talking about are interrelated, because my understanding is that the most efficient way to become more cosmically active, to bring ourselves into the cosmic community, is to first make total harmony with this planet, is to fully live here, is to live here in a way where we are a beneficial presence to that. And to me, that leads to the maturity necessary to become an interplanetary civilization. But I think the maturity that we develop on Earth, the way that we interact with the Earth, that's to me what leads to us then having the responsibility, the integrity to move beyond this. So I think if we're focusing on steps, then so how do we manifest an Earth that is not just saved from the forces of our interference, but what if we lived on a planet that was so much better because of our presence, right? If it was uplifted. And I believe that can occur before we get to the point where there's an expiration of the planet, there's an expiration of our star. I believe that the interim between now and then is about total harmony with this planet and really maturing with it. So that if we do get to that part in its history where we need to part ways with the planet, that, that we're parting ways with a place that we have treated with love and that has been a big, peaceful, beautiful part of our story. Because, that's a very tragic thing. It's a very, very tragic thing. I'll say that I have one of the first memories that came back to me from outside of this life was as an extraterrestrial who was leaving a dying planet. This is something I experienced directly. This came back to me as a very lucid memory, and I wept so hard. I was very traumatized by the return of this memory because I was leaving a dying planet. Now, the context of it was not that we had destroyed it. It was actually, funnily enough, the natural expiration for that planet's capacity to support that form of life. But it was heartbreaking because this was a being that had been integral in my spiritual evolution and the evolution of my species. So when I think about that happening with the Earth, well, I would want to get to a point where we as a civilization bond more deeply with this planet, because to leave this place that has harbored our spiritual evolution, I mean, that's losing a cosmic mother. It's an incredible thing. So, there's a lot there, I think, within that question and where we need to go with it. And that's what I have to say right now.
I think that the Nibiru moved out of a harmful situation. And one of the theories is that Nibiru was able to shift to a different solar system to avoid that, the sun going nova. So I don't think it's a necessary outcome that if the sun goes nova, that the planets perish. I think they can be moved. That's my...
Yeah, they said it came from Sirius C, when Sirius C went nova.
Right. So,
yes, and very true. I've heard that as well.
Right, but I'm sorry you had that memory. I mean, maybe your society didn't have that awareness that it could be moved. It was
very difficult at the time, but it was very beneficial for me because it was the beginning of a cascade of other memories that ended up being very pertinent to my progress. But it's a helpful thing to have on a planet where, we're constantly bombarded with this idea of the dying planet. And for me to have reconciled that trauma early on in my life and to have gotten to a place of peace with it, it's actually helped me be more present with this planet, because I think I was being triggered because I had that ancient distant memory. I think it was really messing with me to be on a planet that's just drowning in propaganda about the planet dying. And, it's been kind of a crazy ride in terms of that experience.
Well, I think
there's
too smart. I mean, I think Earth is too smart. We might die off, but then it'll revive itself with other species. It seems like, humanity and different high levels of life forms who didn't really get their act together have perished many times, and then there's been a revival. So,
there's
okay, go
a
ahead.
series. There's a book series called The Ringing Cedars. I don't know if any of you guys have come across that, but it comes out of Russia.
I've come across, but I haven't read it. But go ahead.
Well, one of the things they describe in it is a future vision where humanity has become much more spiritually evolved. And there's a group of highly evolved children, spiritually evolved children, who are putting on a demonstration for their community. And what they do is they take a dead flower, and the children all go into like a highly meditative state, and they actually produce the light and energy necessary to bring that flower not only back to life, but then to have it bloom. And then what the children present to their community is that if enough of us engage in this evolved state, then we can become the light source for the Earth. The Earth will no longer need the sun, and with humanity as the light source, we can use it as a ship and travel the cosmos. And they present this as like a potential point in humanity's future. And I always thought that was very interesting, the notion that we as a civilization can become evolved enough to produce the light necessary for a planet to survive and move through the cosmos. I mean, that's like stunning information to me.
I agree. I think anything's possible. We have to set our minds to it. So, who's causing all these wars? Do you think it might be something that's emerging from ourselves, like the law of attraction and action, and that we can take personal responsibility and shift things into, like you're talking about, a higher level of consciousness where we create a society, a world that works for everybody? Anybody have any feedback on that? Those concepts? There's a lot of feedback. Please mute when you're not talking. Okay, next person. I hasn't talked for a while.
Hi, this is Graham.
Hi,
I
Graham.
just thought I'd
Your turn.
hi. Thought I'd connect that to something I was thinking about recently. In terms of the military is such a strong tradition on this planet. I can't really see it going away, but I feel that if it was diverted towards space exploration, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's not about getting off this planet. Certainly, space exploration could benefit us on Earth as well. Not about running away, really about developing our potential here. And at the same time, keeping that great military tradition going. I mean, Star Trek and that template type of science fiction has been extremely useful in giving us potential timelines that we can rectify into, and I really see that as being an important future step for us on Earth, and as a way to also bring peace on Earth and continue that tradition into space. I think it makes sense.
Great. Tell me a little bit more about your organization. What is your structure? Do you have meetings? Do you have conferences? Who wants to speak for your group here?
Yeah, Axel, I think you should take the lead on that, brother. Go for it. Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
Tell me a little bit more about your organization. What is it called? Do you have meetings? Do you do conferences? Do you have a website? What is this group that the three of you have come together? What is your
for sure.
group vision? Yes.
Well, actually, this is the first time we've actually been on a conference call together. It's something that we're working more towards the future. We have plans. We're currently working on a business plan with various people that are working alongside us to help bring this to a mainstream consciousness. And it's very challenging. It's not easy having to go around all these hurdles, having to go around the mainstream media and all these different propaganda tools. it's something that is very pressing, that is very close to our hearts, but it's something that does need a little bit more elbow grease, and we do need to do more, and we realize that, but that's also why we're setting very realistic goals and giving us enough time, and we're lucky that we have good people in positions of power that are allowing for people to actually get this information out there. You know, had we had different leaders in office, things would be very different. So it can only, the assumption can only be made that, you know, everything needs to be taken in stride, but things do need to be taken a little bit more seriously than they are right now, because it all comes down to unification. Divided you are weak, together you are strong. So that's basically where it all comes from, and we're trying to do our best to gel and to work together, but it's definitely going to come down to that. And if it doesn't, then so be it. But that's the only way that I see it moving forward, is to bring new people on, have them speak their mind. Even if you disagree, I'm still going to defend your right to say it to the death, because that's what freedom of speech is. That's what it procures, and we need more freedom of speech. We need more freedom of expression. We need these things to be able to be talked about, and I don't see it happening any other way.
So what are some of the obstacles? Are you getting censored, or what's going on that you have obstacles?
Yeah, well, what are some of the obstacles? Well, I mean, deplatformation, demonetization, how Space Force, if you look it up on Google, some of the top ranks that you'll get is this new Netflix show that's supposed to be featuring the top guy from The Office. I don't know. I'm super checked out when it comes to Netflix and stuff like that. You know, I don't pay attention to any of it because I just don't have the time for it. I'm very invested in my truth journalism, but I mean, that's what you get. You get a whole lot of mumble jumble when you search for these topics, because they're trying to bury it. So what we're trying to do is take the best part of it and bring it in the best way that we can, in the most non-divisive way that we can, to the general consensus.
Yeah, so you're saying, you know,
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just looking up what you're talking about. This is on June 18th, the federal government announced the creation of the Space Force. So you're saying, and that's on, that's the announcement on Netflix. So you're saying that's what comes up. I'm just trying to clarify what you were saying.
Yeah, so I think the Space Force is...
What was the problem with Netflix?
Well, if you look at Netflix, and you look at Disney, and you look at these big tech companies that control a lot of the information that is downloaded, you know, it's called programming for a reason. You're watching a program. It's to subtly infiltrate the realm that people operate on, this materialistic realm. So I think that the fact that they're making a mockery of the Space Force, actually, it's very sad, because it's actually the one thing that can actually provide a lot of healing to the karmic trauma that has affected and been passed down through generations. So in order to cut the head off the snake, because you can't just cut off the tail or the whatever, it'll regrow any part of the body. You really do need to cut the head off the snake. And how do you do that? Well, how do you release this technology that we've all agreed is super crucial for humanity to have this positive disposition of which we're operating from? It's mandatory that we have people in power, in positions of power, that are operating from a disposition of good, of populism, of the fight for humanity, not for depopulation, not for, for these other kinds of things. We know what the deep state wants. They want a completely enslaved, chipped, microchipped human civilization that serves nothing but to procure their agenda. And now we know through Space Force. And I talk to a lot of people who, you know, they're never Trumpers. I have lots of people in my family who have disowned me for voicing my opinion on why the Space Force is a good thing. And they see it as a waste of money. They see it as a black hole of funds. But what they don't understand is that the Space Force has been around for a long time. And Trump doesn't actually have to create a Space Force. He just has to disclose it. So that's where the battle is. The battle is for the mind. The battle is for you, really. And all the answers are within you. If you can quiet yourself and meditate for 4 minutes a day, that will ultimately give you the answers for how to move forward. And I think not enough people do that. We look outwards for our solutions to our problems when really we have them all inside of us. We've been given that power. It's a divine right that we have. It's the reason why nobody is allowed to invade our planet, because we are sovereign. We have that divine power. So, I mean, really, this comes down to us and how we will view this Space Force, and if we will view it as a method of militarization of space, or if we will view it as the greatest story that has ever unfolded for humanity. And that's all I have to say.
So I'm looking at this network series, Space Force. It's not out yet. It stars Greg Daniels and Steve Carell. Now, the Orville was a takeoff of Star Trek, and it ended up being pretty good. It has some episodes that were thought-provoking. So you're saying that this is a comedy that's going to be a negative thing, but it hasn't come out yet. So what do you think is going to happen with this series, Space Force? What's your
I honestly just think they're going to be making a mockery of the whole thing. If you look at the people who are behind it, it's all Hollywood, fake news, people who are associated with very, very nefarious activities that we can talk about. We talk about it a lot on the channel. Child sex trafficking, human trafficking, child sacrifice, human sacrifice, organ harvesting, these things, cannibalism. They're all very real. They've been around for a long time. This is nothing new, but it's just a matter of when we actually have the power to move around from point A to point B with very little time in between, it really does enable people to, let's say you're a bad person, you're addicted to cocaine, you have a tendency for pedophilia. Well, you just adopted an ARV. Well, guess what? I wouldn't be surprised if you just got on and abducted a small village of people. So that's why I do think that a Space Force is necessary.
I think that's already happening. From my understanding, that there's always people missing from the planet, and some of them are being taken up to the secret space program. They're used as sex slaves. They're used as military slaves. They're used as food. They board some of them. This is what I'm getting. And this has been going on for thousands of years, and I don't think adding technology to the mix of, first of all, I don't think the technology is going to be released to everybody. You can do it in your garage. It's all going to be patents and, monitored just like everything else. Even when they make marijuana, legal everywhere, they're still going to tax it and, be like the alcohol business. So everything gets regulated and monitored, and of course you have the black, underground movement of everything. So I don't know. I have a different perspective. Yeah.
I just see it happening where they land on the White House lawn and they come out and it's men and women wearing our uniforms, and people are going to think it's alien, but it's us. And what we need to do is look inside of us, because no one's going to give us the answers. It's us. We need to figure out our problems as a species. We need to understand certain things are not okay. Love Trump or hate him, I don't care. He's going after international child sex trafficking, and it's very hard for me to hate somebody who started 0 wars. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say to that, is that we need to make the world
Yeah, great again. No, not great again. We need to make the world understand that certain things are just not okay.
Nice. All right, I don't know exactly. I mean, this child trafficking goes back, thousands of years, and it's been going on. And I don't think one person's going to solve it or resolve it. It's something that's based on multi-generational dysfunction. I lived in a neighborhood where there was a lot of sexual abuse, and I'm sure it's still going on. So it's something that's core to humanity that we have to get over and stop doing it and hurting people that are helpless and harmless. But I'm back to what you were saying, that they're going to land on the White House lawn. That's a false flag event, and that's been going around for years and years and years, that they're going to do a false flag. And part of the theory is that they're going to, use the second coming of Jesus. I was talking to Randy Kramer last year this time on a panel about that. They're combining it with the second coming of Jesus and the false flag of the alien invasion. Oh boy, I got a lot of feedback. So anyway,
okay, well, I'll just say something to that really quick.
Feedback.
I'm a really devout Christian, right? I'm very devout in my faith. So I'll just say right now that if the second coming of Jesus happened, it'll be the same thing as the first coming. People are super checked out. People have no idea the kind of world that they're living in. They will kill him and literally nail him to a cross again, because that's what people know. People don't know any better, and the only way to reach them is through knowledge and real proven facts of what has actually happened in the world. And until people actually come to grasp with what has actually been manifesting on this planet, child sacrifice, it's not a sexual thing. It's sucking the life force from an innocent person. Right. The Bible says that an attack on a child is an attack on the father. So these people are getting off not on sexual, highs, but on the fact that they are stealing the innocence from a divine life force. We are all created in the image of the divine. Anyone who doesn't agree with that is super checked out, has no idea what's going on, and really needs to do some soul searching, because until they do, they're not going to understand. They're going to have these false idols, and they're just not going to understand. So we do need to get over that hump.
I wasn't saying it's a real Jesus. They were going to have a fake Jesus and a fake second coming in order to control, manipulate society. That's what the theory was.
I've heard of that.
Could I go around? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that that technology does exist. They have technology that has identified the parts of the brain that are activated when someone has a deeply spiritual experience. They have used that technology already on smaller scales. They've had, let's say they're in, the U.S. military is in a war and they want to, shut down a certain area. They've actually had, the enemy soldiers put through a religious experience and lay down all their weapons. So they do have the technology to create fake spiritual experiences. And of course they have the technology to create a false alien invasion. And I think that comes back to what we were saying earlier. We have to stay rooted in process and watch out for our attachments, right? Especially in this community, right? If we're coming from this truther community, from more conspiratorial communities, from disclosure communities, we are very prone to attachments to certain events, certain experiences. And I think our discernment needs to be high, which means not investing belief. It really can't be about belief. You have to connect with your own direct experience. So, even though this is something that I'm passionate about, I would question anything that occurred in that kind of open public platform, anything on the White House lawn. I'd be very, very careful with that. And I think we all need to develop that. And I really believe that those of us who are doing this research, those of us who are on the precipice of this information, and those of us that are contactees and experiencers, what we're really, really developing is the discernment that's going to be necessary when massive events like that challenge us all. So really sort out what's going on, because it might not be as clear as we want it to be. And so maybe these small communities that have been digesting all this information and trying to get it out there are really refining collective discernment to prepare us for, whatever those large events may be, whether they are genuine or whether they are part of an agenda. I think that's why even just panels like the one we're having right now are important, because it's not going to be easy to sort out what's going on as things unfold, in my opinion.
I have a question for you, Simon.
Okay,
this is Axel speaking. What do you think would happen if the Space Force's first preliminary disclosure was rolling out the U.S. Navy's 4-kilometer-long submarines and 3-kilometer-long, 300-foot-high William Tompkins battle cruisers on the White House lawn? Down come the escalators, and we all think it's aliens. It's all over the news, and we see men and women come down in Canadian uniforms, American uniforms. They are our people. What would you say to that? Would that be benevolent or would that be malevolent? Hello?
Sorry.
We're out of time.
Okay, yeah, let's
we'll
wrap it up.
We'll have to leave that answer for the next panel. We're out of time.
Let's do it.
Okay, well, we can hold that on for the next one.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Simon, Brent, and Axel. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Aloha.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. Aloha.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
On the go? Still want to listen? Don't have one of those fancy phones with too many buttons. Don't know what an app is? Or you don't even care? Well, we got you here at Revolution Radio. Now you can dial in 24/7 to listen to our shows. We have a number for Studio A and Studio B, and best of all, it's free. Don't forget, your carrier charges for your cell phone provider may apply, though, so check with your cell provider to make sure. So ready? Here you go. Get a pen. Here's the number. Studio A is 712-432-6958, and Studio B is 716-748-0112. Thank you very much for listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station in the world.
Hey everyone, it's Barbara Jean Lindsay, the Cosmic Oracle. If you have questions about your past lives or future plans, need answers from the cosmos about your love life or career, or just want to keep your finger on the pulse of the planet, check out my show, The Cosmic Oracle, here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
Looking for a nightcap to fill your listening needs? Come join us on Spaced Out Radio with me, Dave Scott, right here on Revolution Radio. Monday through Friday for 3 hours a night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we will take you down the supernatural path. From ET contact to the paranormal and all of the spiritual, cryptid, and conspiracy stories in between. You can find us right here on Revolution Radio, at spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter at spacedoutradio, and on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show. Spaced Out Radio. It's a night of talk and interaction. Are you experienced?
Hello, Karl Marx here. Look at my wonderful hair. Notice how I sweep it back.
Karl?
I call it the 360 sweep. Beard, sideburns, and the magnificent coif.
Karl!
What? What is this?
You're on the radio. They can't see you.
Oh, yeah. I get confused.
Want to learn more about the Marxist agenda and other important stuff? Listen to The Ultimate Remedy with L.B. Bork, Tuesdays 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on Revolution Radio.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It would just